Today, I'm at Ferrari Maserati of Central Florida, and we've got a 2023 Maserati Grecale. Let's kick things off with the exterior of the car. The best part of the car, the rear end. I love these taillights. I think it accentuates the width of the car. And then we get to the profile, and that is a great looking profile. All the lines are just right. I think where things take a turn is the front end. It has a bit of an Jaguar E-Pace look to it, and that is not particularly one of my favorite Jaguars, and I'm a huge Jaguar fanboy. I think overall the front end still looks pretty good. It just doesn't match with the rest of the car's design. All in all though, still a wonderful looking car. Opening the doors is really simple. Notice there's actually no door handle, there's nothing to pull on. But you have a button underneath that you press and the doors open as such. We are inside the Maserati Grecale. This is the Modena version. Wow, what an interior. First of all, red leather, fantastic seats, super comfortable. This infotainment system right here is amazingly responsive. This is probably one of the most responsive units of any car I've driven in the past, I don't know how many years, since everything's gone digital essentially. First of all, let me start with this bottom system right here. Now you might think, oh my god, it's touch screen, I got to do all this stuff, and while I'm driving around this is going to be a pain. It's not bad at all. In fact, not only is it responsive, but it also has some quick shortcuts. So if you're driving, you don't want to take your eyes off the road, you just want to increase the temperature a little bit. All you do is you just kind of slide your finger and you've got a range that you could sort through right here. So it's about a 10-degree range. So if you want to do some more, you kind of start from the bottom, work your way up and down as such. And if you want to do the opposite, you start from the top. You want to start from this bezel area right here, the black bar, and then move your way up or down. Same goes for the fan speed. If you want to increase the fan speed or you want to decrease the fan speed, start from the black area, from the bezel, work your way left or right. Very, very, very convenient shortcut. I love it. The volume is right here. It's a little tricky. It's weird it's on the other side. Maybe for that I would have preferred a knob. But nonetheless, you do have a shortcut for the volume. It's behind the steering wheel over there. Everything here is extremely responsive. This is a cool little feature. Let's call this a funky little quirk. You've got your clock right here, and you've got your clock right here. So this is basically telling you what you've got it set to. Now you could change it to a sport clock, a design clock, and that'll change up here as well. See? You can change the clock to a compass. You could change the clock to display your pedal pressure. So this is, I'm on the brakes right now, and I could touch the throttle and the throttle will change as well. And then you can change it to the G meter. Again, really cool, nifty little features like that. I'm a classy kind of person. I'm gonna keep it on the classic clock setting over here. You've got your seats. This defaults to the bolster settings. And what you can do is you can firm up the bolsters, or you can just hold it like this and the bolsters tighten up. Kind of reminds me of the old M5 where the bolsters are kind of maneuver left and right as you turned. My M5 doesn't have that feature, but a handful of them did. You've got your memory seats over here. You can do the same for the passenger side. All your other controls for the seats are located over there as a normal car would. So this is really just about one of the only things you can do. You've got cooled seats, you've got heated seats. Let's turn those on, ventilation high. You see how responsive this you can turn both on if you wanted to, which is a little bizarre. But such an incredibly responsive unit. This is absolutely amazing. And you might be able to hear the hissing, a little bit of that vent working in the seat, and it's doing a good job of already cooling off. Then we go over here. We've got the nav, we've got your phone. Here's a little test that I like to do. So what I like to do is I like to pinch like this and then flick. Do you see that? It's so responsive. I'm really impressed with this. This has got to be one of the best units I've utilized in probably 5 or 6 years. I can't think of many cars faster than this. The Lucid is probably up there. But for a Maserati, and if I'm not mistaken, this is using all the Stellantis stuff from Chrysler products, essentially, Jeeps included. This is really, really good. And now I'm not saying that just because it's a Maserati, because essentially this is an American system. And I know American tech in cars has not really been synonymous with being speedy or useful or excelling in purpose or in functionality. But this is great. You have apps here. You've got Android Auto, you have Apple CarPlay, you've got Alexa, you've got Sirius, you've got all sorts of stuff over here. So, and then you can roam through these vehicle settings over here, which will show you your technical gauges, such as your turbo pressure, your torque, and your oil pressure. Drag race, you can measure how fast your car accelerates, 0 to 60, 100, quarter, eighth of a mile, and a quarter mile, even your braking distance, in case you want to abuse the car a little bit, which is sometimes fun. This doesn't mean that this is an electric vehicle. This is not an electric vehicle. This just kind of shows you what the mild hybrid system is doing. It's a bit of a gimmick, but kind of fun to see nonetheless. You've got a few little settings here, and then your display modes, brightness, etc., clock and date, safety, driving assistance. This is so fast. I love this. This is really, really cool. So yeah, that's the interior. You've got storage, wireless charger, doesn't work. I tried it on my Galaxy Flip. If your key fob ever has an issue pairing with the car or anything like that, you place it there, it should bring it back to life. So this is some storage here. Glove box. This is how you open the car door. There's a button right here. But you also do have a manual latch release right there. So you can release the door that way. It's kind of fun to use the button. Plain and simple. Very nice little aluminum speaker grills. You've got some carbon fiber looking material here. It feels like plastic. Leather all over, leather top. Leather here as well. There's a lot of leather in this car. Very premium stuff. I've set up the seat the way I'd be driving this car, and there's plenty of legroom. You've got the seats are also carved out, so your knees won't bang on the back of the seat, so they've done a good job at sculpting these. As I've mentioned in the past, I'm about 6'1". I have got a lot of room. You've got your little AC display over here. The design of the interior and the way it's laid out essentially flows to the back seats over here. Wonderful, wonderful touches. Great quality leather. Interestingly enough, the doors in the back also open with the press of a button, but I can't find a manual release anywhere. Maybe the idea is that if this ever fails, that the driver would help you out, or you can kind of crawl out from the front over there. Let's take a quick look at this trunk space. Despite being an X3 competitor, this trunk is huge. It looks smaller than a Levante, but it's actually not that much smaller at all. It's just a really well-sized car with a ton of cargo room. And if you needed more cargo room, these are the latch releases right here to fold the back seats down. We're gonna go for a drive now, and I'm really looking forward to this. The first funny little quirk is there's no shifter stalk. There's no column stalk. It's buttons, and the buttons are right on the screen. So you've got park, reverse, neutral, and then drive. And you press drive again to go into manual, or you could probably just hit the paddle. Yep. So we're gonna go for a drive. This is the Modena, which means this has 325 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 should be just around the 5-second mark, maybe a little under. I know that the standard GT model, which has 30 less horsepower, can do a quarter mile in about the high 13s. So add an extra 30 horsepower, you're probably looking mid to low 13s. What I'm curious about are a few things. How does this compare to a Jaguar F-Pace or an E-Pace, which is a front-wheel drive car? I never quite liked the E-Pace a whole lot. A front-wheel drive Jaguar just never seemed right to me, even though they offered an all-wheel drive as well. But I love the F-Pace, I love the SVR as well. I had one. And so how does this compare? Being a 4-cylinder only car in 2 states of different tune. There is a Trofeo version of this car, but it is considerably more expensive. So the Trofeo version of this car makes 523 horsepower. It is a detuned version of the same engine found in the MC20. Essentially, it's detuned, it's a little bit reworked, it's kind of more daily purpose built. So it's not as aggressive, but it still makes a lot of power. Here we have a 2-liter 4-cylinder making 325 horsepower. Now I've got the car set to sport mode, and we're gonna go through some bumpy roads. This is a Maserati. You should be driving it a little bit sporty. So far, the ride is pretty good in this in sport mode. I haven't had a chance to put the pedal down just yet because I want a better road for that, which we are coming up on. But so far, I'm pretty impressed. It's a nice ride. It's not crashy. We haven't hit any curves yet, which we will. We will get to that. We'll open it up here. Here we go. We're gonna go over some road bumps, some speed bumps here. Impressive. Let's do it in comfort. So I went over that speed bump faster than I went over the other one, and that's actually pretty good. All right, here we have a bend. Let's keep this in manual. It steers well. There's body roll. Not a tremendous amount of body roll. We're not talking G-Wagon or the Land Rover Defender that I drove the other day. So we're gonna go over some rumble strips. Let's hear it. That was in sport mode. It's not bad. If anything, the Land Rover actually crashed over those strips worse than this car did. So this is surprisingly more compliant than I thought it would be. Now let's open it up. It's not as responsive as I would think as a Macan or something, or Macan S. But for a 4-cylinder, it's got plenty of grunt. And I'm doing that mid-range too, so I think I'll do that again. That was about a 3,000 RPM pull, so I imagine I need to do that in a slightly higher rev range. The low-end torque is fantastic. You really feel the car respond off the line almost immediately. Exhaust sounds great. When you rev it, standing still, the car needs to be under load, otherwise it doesn't sound great. But when you're really moving the car along and everything's shuffling and hustling, it does sound like a great car. Every shift has a bit of a grumble to it. We're gonna go around this turn, about 45. Yeah, so there's a bump midway through the turn. You kind of feel the suspension moving around underneath you and all that. So it's a sporty car. You can actually option this with an even sportier suspension that will lower the ride height. You can get it on this, and you can also get it on the Trofeo. There is an additional package you can order if you find that the standard suspension on this car isn't to your liking, handling wise, because as far as comfort, it's amazing. But if you're looking for a tighter ride, better handling, you can order a handling pack or a performance pack of sorts, where when you adjust your drive modes, where you go from, let's say, comfort to sport, it actually lowers the car, which is really, really cool. And that package also provides you an off-road setting as well. Now, I doubt that anybody with this car would ever off-road there, but in the event that, let's say, you have to park in a grassy field during a concert or a football game, what have you, it might come in handy if for whatever reason it rains or it gets muddy there. So, I love the suspension. It's extremely comfortable. It's not a performance-oriented suspension by default, but you can make it so if you choose to spend a little extra money. It's got a good sounding exhaust, especially being for a 4-cylinder of smaller displacement. The transmission's responsive. This is a ZF 8-speed, which is basically what you would find in really almost any other car these days. Power's healthy. The mild hybrid system does a good job of assisting low-end performance. The interior is amazing. Great tech, extremely responsive screen. Really nothing I can complain about here. The looks are mostly great. I do think that the front end looks like an E-Pace, and I know I'm not the only person that said that. I would have probably preferred a slightly different set of headlights, but I do understand that this is the family aesthetic right now for Maserati. It looks like the MC20, it looks like the new Gran Turismo, so I get it. But I just feel like on a car of this stature, this size, maybe would have preferred a slightly different look at front end. Nonetheless, the rear end, the profile, beautiful. This is a Maserati after all. It's not often that they design a bad looking car. And in case you're wondering, what is a Grecale? Essentially, it's another wind-based name like the Ghibli, the Levante, and now the Grecale is a wind from the Greek region. The Ghibli is also a wind from another region, and so is the Levante. So that's where these names are coming from. They're all wind-based names, except the Quadruporte. That just means 4 doors. Now the price is one thing to talk about. The car that I'm in right now, stickers at 92. And this is missing an option or two, but this is a really, really high-spec car. It starts at 72 for the Modena. The standard GT starts in the 60s, about 63,000. And if power is what you desire, you probably want something like this. If you're okay with 300 horsepower and you're just kind of puttering about day-to-day, daily driver, etc., then 300 is fine as well. $92,000 for this car might be a little much for some people, but if you were to keep the options to a minimum, if you were a little bit more conservative with what you spec this car, you still get everything that makes it great. You still get the suspension, you've got this beautiful screen, and you still have all the other things that make it as good as it is. The Sonus Faber audio is sort of standard no matter how you spec this car. Just you get a 14 speaker or a 21 speaker. Obviously the 21 speaker is going to have more boom, a bit more treble, so you've got more high end. But the bottom line is you get Sonus Faber no matter which audio package you pick. You could probably cut back on some of the tech and save some money. Essentially what I'm trying to get at is that you don't have to spend $92,000 to enjoy this car as much as I'm enjoying it right now. You can keep it somewhere in the 70s and still be perfectly content. You're not settling. But if you so happen to find one sitting at a dealership, then there's probably a lot of other things you can cross shop. And I would highly recommend that you do drive some other cars before you feel like this is the one for you. I do like all the little features that this car has that I've shown earlier on. You could change the clock over here to all sorts of different little displays. This cluster over here is highly configurable. There are a lot of little widgets you can add to it, I believe up to 10. So in conclusion, it rides well, it looks very good, it sounds nice, the interior is great, nothing short of great. It's competing with a higher end of the market, such as the Porsche Macan. And the great thing is that if you're in the market for an SUV of this size and you don't want an X3, and you don't want a GLE, or you don't want a GLC, you don't want an X5, I think this is the perfect in-between. It's just the right size, it's got decent performance. The most important thing, at least to me, is that it's got a bit of that exclusivity. You're not gonna see 20 of these a day anywhere you go in a 5-minute span. And you're not gonna see one of these cars in a school parking lot, or at least not many of them. So if you're the type of person that looks for a little bit of exclusivity, something a little bit more unique, I think this is the car for you. Having said that, if you like cars like these, if you like Maseratis, if you like fun, quirky Italian cars, like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching. And thank you again to Ferrari of Central Florida for loaning me this car.